I thought my family loved my girlfriend, until she surprise showed up at a family dinner and we overheard them trash talking about her. I was planning on marrying this woman. I, 35, have been with my girlfriend, Sammy, 30, for just over a year now. She's amazing in every way, intelligent, beautiful, ambitious, well-educated, caring, and goofy. She's everything I've ever wanted. And up until last week, I thought my family felt the same way. Last week, I went to my parents' house for dinner. We get together as a family a few times a month. It's been a tradition with us for years now. Sammy usually joins us for these dinners, but had work obligations. I told my family she wouldn't be joining us that night. Halfway through dinner, I got up to go to the bathroom, and Sammy texted me that she was outside. She got off work early and came over to hang out. She would have normally walked in, which is normal, but she needed help bringing in some gifts. Sammy is leaving tomorrow for a work trip and a personal vacation to see some friends, so she won't be back until Thanksgiving. My brother and sister, twins, have their birthday next week, and my girlfriend had gifts for them. At this point, my family had no idea Sammy was there. We walked inside and headed to the kitchen and we overheard my family talking. My sister was saying that she was glad my girlfriend was gone because she couldn't stand a family night being ruined by my girlfriend being annoying. My brother and other sister agreed about how annoying and awful my girlfriend is. My dad made a comment about how they should be nice to Sammy. And my mom chimed in with, "Sammy is nice and all, but I can't believe he likes how fat she is. He can do so much better." My family, even my dad, agreed. And my sister piped up that I was dating down because I'm still rebounding from my last girlfriend, which was 5 years ago. I was floored. My family has always been so nice to Sammy and I've never heard them talk badly about her. I've never heard my family say mean things about anyone, to be honest. Sammy walked into the kitchen and dumped the presents on the counter. She was crying and mumbled something about happy birthday and then took off out the door. My family looked shocked and a bit embarrassed. I asked my family what the heck was wrong with them and didn't stick around for an answer. I went after Sammy. She was in her car, crying. Now, Sammy is usually tough, but family is super important to her. She has no family, aside from an alcoholic dad that she doesn't have any contact with. My family was like her surrogate family and something she always wanted. She was overjoyed when my family welcomed her and invited her to family events. The presents she brought my sister and brother were paintings she had spent many hours working on. And yes, she is fat. But, I prefer thick girls, always have. To me, she's gorgeous and exactly what I like. But even then, she's lost about 40 pounds since we started dating. I would love her at any weight and I'm proud of the work she's done. I have no idea what they mean about her being annoying. She comes when she's invited, usually brings baked goods or beer. She's taken my family out to dinner multiple times and is extremely generous with them. She's even become the go-to babysitter for my sister and her 2 kids, and she helped my brother get a job in her company. She pushed really hard to get him hired and put her professional reputation on the line. She's never asked for repayment or holds it over anyone. She even does the dishes when we come over for dinner. The thing that makes this even worse is I was planning on proposing to her in the next few months, and I had planned on asking my sisters to come with me to pick out her ring. Now, Sammy hasn't said much about it and hasn't talked to me much about this incident. She has always wanted a family and she doesn't understand why my family doesn't like her or what she's done wrong. She said she'd talk to me more when she gets back from her trip. I don't want to lose her over this. I would take her over my family. Sammy hasn't been her usual cheerful self this week and I've caught her crying more than once since this incident. I try to comfort her but she tries to play it that she's fine. At this point, I have no idea if I even want them in my life. All of them have reached out to me with weak apologies full of justifications. I asked my mom if she had apologized to Sammy, and my mom said I could pass on the apology. To be fair to them, all of them do feel bad about what happened and seemed extra embarrassed about this. But no one can give me exact reasons why she's annoying or how she's ruined family nights. My dad is the only reasonable one that has offered to apologize to Sammy directly. What do I do? I don't want to get rid of my family, but Sammy matters more to me at this point. I want Sammy to know I'm fully in her corner and I don't want her to feel guilty if I have to cut out my family. Edit. Some people were asking questions, so I want to add some things. Her family life is so freaking tragic and she deserved none of it. Her mother died when she was young and her dad crawled into bottle instead of deal with his grief. She always said on the day her mom died, she became an orphan. She also lost her only good family members in a span of 18 months, grandma, grandpa and aunt. She's been living on her own since she was 15. I did have a conversation with my sister that ended in, "Fuck off." She had no answer to what she found annoying about Sammy. Her justification was that she didn't think Sammy or I would hear what they were saying. That's what got me to tell her to piss off. Small update, I have decided to take Sammy on a vacation for Thanksgiving. I'm on the phone with a very helpful guy that's trying to find me a hotel room that isn't booked for that weekend. No matter what happens, I think this is going to be a tradition I build with her for the future. A relaxing weekend to ourselves while everyone else is running around buying knockoff iPads. Also, I talked to my dad briefly last night. He's pretty horrified by everything and has agreed to come over and apologize to Sammy and do it when Sammy feels up to hearing it. I have told Sammy all of this since it happened. She knows I'm choosing her over my family and that I would choose her over anyone. Update 2. First off, Sammy and I had a wonderful Thanksgiving. We spent it out of town in a small skiing town. It was a great weekend and we spent a lot of time talking and discussing what to do about my family. Sammy was still pretty hurt over the matter but was adamant that I shouldn't cut all ties with my family. I told her that all depended on my family. My mom was in denial that I wouldn't be coming to Thanksgiving. After my last post, I let her know Sammy and I wouldn't be attending. She brushed it off until the day before Thanksgiving when she called to make sure I was bringing pie. I reminded her I wouldn't be at dinner and she broke down crying. She told me she was sorry for hurting Sammy and would like the chance to apologize. I let her know she'd have a chance after Thanksgiving. After we got back from our Thanksgiving trip, my parents came over for dinner. I had okayed this with Sammy. She thought my parents deserved a chance to make this right, and frankly, I think she really wanted to mend things with my family. Dinner was awkward, to say the least. My dad started out by offering Sammy a genuine apology. He told her he was extremely embarrassed and genuinely wanted to make things up to her. They had a nice chat. The talk with my mom, well, that went okay. My mom cried through most of it and tried to reinforce that she was very sorry. I couldn't tell if she was sorry or just upset that I was taking Sammy's side. I don't think Sammy was convinced either. A few days after dinner, my mom called Sammy and asked her to lunch to talk by themselves. Several comments in my last post mentioned that my family probably felt Sammy was annoying simply because they felt intimidated or projecting their own issues on her. I think that was spot on. Sammy went to lunch with my mom and they had a very long, good talk about everything. She said my mom felt jealous that Sammy was so educated and had the chance to get an education. And Sammy admitted to being jealous that my mom has a big family. Sammy opened up to my mom about the situation with her own family and living on her own since she was a teenager. I think that hit my mom very hard because she's always been surrounded by a big, loving family. And I think she was horrified by her own behavior towards Sammy, who wanted to be a part of the family. Overall, I think things are better between my parents and Sammy. My younger sister reached out to Sammy after Thanksgiving. I don't think any of my siblings expected me to ditch family dinner and I heard they were pretty upset I went on vacation instead. My sister apologized over the phone. I don't know if it was enough, but it was a good step. Sammy says she's feeling pretty neutral about my youngest sister. She said she feels like my sister is more sorry she was caught, but Sammy appreciated the apology. My brother had to endure a very uncomfortable few weeks at work, while Sammy was traveling. I think by Thanksgiving, he was confident that Sammy wasn't going to screw with his job. When Sammy got back to work after our vacation, he went to her office to apologize. Again, I think he apologized just to appease us. But he did it in person and didn't try to cop out. Like my sister, Sammy feels neutral about him. My other sister, my brother's twin, is the only holdout. She hasn't given Sammy an apology and seems pissed that she no longer has a built-in free babysitter. She's doubled down and said she has nothing to apologize for and Sammy is the one causing troubles. This has caused a bit of a rift in my family. My parents would like Sammy and I to come to Christmas dinner, but I'm not interested in being around my sister right now and I'm not going to subject Sammy to that. My parents have even suggested that my sister should stay home to make us more comfortable in coming. While I appreciate the sentiment, I would feel guilty about my sister being alone on Christmas. Her kids will be with their dad. Sammy and I have plenty of offers from friends. My sister would probably not be able to find a place to go on short notice. Sammy has told my parents she would rather not create a bigger rift and will come over at another time. Sammy told me, privately, that while she has forgiven my family, she's not all that comfortable hanging out with my family just yet. I'm perfectly okay with this. I feel like taking some time from my family will be a good thing. Sammy and I are still deciding where to go on Christmas, probably to my best friend's house. Now on to the best part of the update. My best friend's wife went ring shopping with me. She let me go to all the chain stores and balked at the prices for the same ring in every store. She eventually took me to a local jeweler and we discussed a custom ring. The jeweler completely understood what I wanted and I decided she would be great at designing a ring. She's pretty backed up with orders, and said she'd be able to get to it in January. A few nights ago, she texted me a picture of a stone she had found, to see if it fit what I had in mind. Sammy saw the text and it led to an impromptu proposal. She said yes. So, now I have a fiancé. We haven't really told anyone yet. I'll tell my family at some point. But for now, I'm enjoying sharing this time with her. So, things are okay. Better than I hoped since my last post. I'm very sad about my sister because I miss her and her kids. And I miss my family. But, I feel good about my decisions. I feel like things will get better with my family, except my sister, in time. Sammy liked the idea of a destination wedding next summer, but we haven't even started any planning yet. Sammy told me after everything that's happened with my family, she feels confident that I have her back and that she finally has me as her true family. I have no choice but to break up with the love of my life, because I know I can't give her what she wants. I, 31 male, have known her, 29 female, since we were teenagers. We got together 10 years ago, and have been living together for a bit over 7. It's been the perfect relationship in pretty much every way. We support each other through everything. We have fun together. She's my best friend and I'm hers. We're as intensely in love as we've ever been. We've discussed marriage a bunch throughout the years. As of a few years ago it wasn't either of us cup of tea, but more recently she has expressed an interest in tying the knot. I don't really have an interest in marriage as a concept, but as I was intent on spending my life with her either way, if she needed a ring and a wedding I was more than willing to accommodate her. As of around half a year ago, I was in the planning stages of a proposal. I had even started to look for a ring. I didn't spoil the eventual surprise, but based on our conversations on the matter I don't think it would have been very unexpected to her if I'd popped the question. If anything, she must be wondering what's taking so long, at this point. But our desires for the future have diverged in another way, that I can't just compromise over. She wants to be a mother, and I don't want to be a father. Much like marriage, for much of our relationship she didn't have such a desire, but now she does. Unlike marriage, however, parenting is not just a symbolic thing I can accommodate her on. She didn't pressure me to change my mind, but she has tried to gauge whether there was wiggle room on my end, whether I could see my opinion on the matter changing. I can't. At this point, she has accepted that. I could pop into a jewelry store tomorrow, pick out a ring, propose to her at the next opportunity. She would say yes, and a while later we'd be married, still on our way to spending our lives together. Even though she knows we will not have children together, she may still hold out hope that I'll change my mind. I can't know for certain either way, of course. I'd get to be with her probably forever, which is really all I want. But she wants to be a mother. Not only has she expressed it to me, it has been painfully obvious in the way she is around our friends and relatives' babies and children, or in the way she awkwardly brushes off her mother's comments about waiting for grandchildren. It really is plain to see. I couldn't miss it if I tried, and, trust me, for a while I did. So I have to let her go. Or, since she has not exactly been trying to leave me, I guess a more accurate way to phrase it is that I have to push her away. I have considered the other options. There's the selfish option, which really just involves staying with her, never giving her a child. I wouldn't even have to coerce her into this or lie about my stance on the subject. But every parent I've asked has gushed about parenting being the most fulfilling experience they've gone through. And for some of them I saw firsthand the exact same tells that they wanted to start a family that I now see with my girlfriend. I can't be the person taking that away from her. There's also a part of me that just fears she'd resent and leave me later on. Then there's the option of committing to eventually become a father, for her. Maybe someday I'd even be thankful I did it, for me. After all, some of the parents I've polled also said they weren't always keen to have children. Some still had doubts even while expecting. And yet it still ended up being that wonderful, fulfilling experience they all described. But even as I type this, even as I try to convince myself I actually believe this, I just don't. And while I've asked happy parents and healthy family units, there are also plenty of unhappy ones, or just crap ones, in this world. I think the least that every child deserves is to be wanted by both of their parents, and I can't see myself go through with this if there's even a chance that I won't meet even that very low bar. Even less so since I believe that chance to be quite high. I've pondered variations of those two main ones too. Waiting it out and hoping she changes her mind, maybe being an aunt or a godmother, both are likely to happen within the next couple years. In the future can be enough, but they all seem like rolls of the dice, whose results will only be known years from now. When she expressed the desire to start a family, it was as a plan for a few years into the future. If that is to happen, without me, then I need to do this now. I've already procrastinated, simply pausing my plans for a proposal when I first realized how much she really wanted this, hoping a better answer would magically appear before me. But I can't just kick this can down the road forever. I've set the date, which is tomorrow. I will tell her I want us to separate. I will tell her why, as I have here. I have prepared myself in case she pushes back, tells me she doesn't want this, believes me to be lying about my reasons, pleads me to reconsider. I think my resolve is strong enough to hold no matter what she throws at me. I expect this to be a shock to her. As I said, she's likely to expect me to pop the question rather than to end things. I know I'm going to break her heart and I hate myself for it. I'm also going to break mine, but I guess that's on me. I've already made plans for the aftermath. I know where I'll be staying for a short while after this, so I'll be out of her hair. I've laid out some options for longer-term living arrangements. I already know that everyone around us, my own family included, is gonna think I'm either a huge jerk or a complete moron. I doubt I'll get much in the way of empathy, but I also won't be looking for it. Can't plan for everything, though. Figuring out how to live without her is gonna be a pain. Full transparency, I started writing this hoping I'd talk myself out of pulling that trigger. Hoping that typing it all out would reveal the magical answer I've been hoping for. But it hasn't. If anything, it has reinforced what I already knew. Update: things didn't exactly work out how I thought and said they would, so here I am. I did approach her last Saturday. I expressed what had been troubling me, and explained to her why I thought we should go our separate ways. As I thought it would, it came as a shock to her. She told me that while she had been wanting to start a family with me, she thought she'd made it clear that she'd chosen me over that prospect, fully aware it would not happen. She emphasized that the with me part was essential to her, that she couldn't picture it any other way. I told her that I was aware of the choice she'd made, but that I did not want to be the reason she'd miss out on being a parent. That while I'm sure she didn't make that call lightly, that I can tell she still wishes to have children, she did confirm that wasn't a desire that had just disappeared, that it was still there, and that while that's true I can only see her choice to stay with me leading to regret and resentment for her. I'm not gonna retell the whole discussion, those are the very rough broad strokes of both of our core positions, but it lasted hours, went through a range of arguments and emotions, cries on both sides, anger and distrust that I was being honest about my reasons on hers. I'd written in the original post that I thought I had the resolve to end things with her no matter what. As it turned out, maybe it came from a lack of resolve, or maybe she just got through to me and it would have just been stubbornness not to listen. But at the end of it we agreed on just taking time apart from one another for the foreseeable future. On her part she promised me she would truly take that time to think about all of it, to re-examine her feelings in depth. On mine I committed to accepting her choice. The argument that convinced me was that this would be the first time in over a decade, the first time since we properly became adults, that we wouldn't be in each other's life, and that if the gain of perspective from being apart didn't change her mind, that had to mean something. Trying to see things rationally, I think the reasoning is sound. On a more emotional level, I cannot say I'm 100% certain I'm not just convincing myself of that, but overall I do think it's the way to go. The fact that, at this point, I don't know what she'll decide is one thing that makes me believe this was right. It also scares the crap out of me because, one of the two options is that I lose her. Might be dumb since I was ready to end it, but thinking about that prospect did and still does wreck me. Based on the responses I got last time, I'd wager many of you will think I was wrong to agree to this. Others advised exactly this, so maybe they'll be happy. Others, I'm sure, will still think I'm a jerk. Hopefully, this will turn out to be the right choice, whatever her decision ends up being. We have not set an exact time frame. I've asked that she take at least a few months, as that sounds like a good minimum, and more importantly that she takes as long as she needs. We, obviously, won't be living together anymore. I'm currently staying at a hotel, but, her decision, she will soon, matter of days, move out of our apartment, at which point I'll move back in. From that point on, we will have no contact with one another at all, except for very strict exceptions which will hopefully not arise, emergencies, personal tragedies. And that's pretty much it. I miss her already. The next while is gonna suck. The aftermath may also suck. But then again, this doesn't suck any worse than I was expecting the aftermath of the definitive breakup I thought would happen would suck. Second update. First off, I did break our no contact policy once. A couple weeks in, I reached out to let her know about my intent to get a vasectomy, which happened a few weeks after that. It was a short conversation. She told me she did expect I might want to do that. We both confessed to missing the other, and that's pretty much it. I hadn't told her before our break because I'm skittish about medical procedures and was still reading up on and talking myself into it. And I didn't wait till after because I felt that was information that could help her reflection, and also didn't like the idea of either delaying the procedure for an unknown amount of time or going through with it behind her back, if that makes sense. Now, on to the conclusion to all of this. I won't keep you in suspense any longer. My partner and I are back together and have been for some weeks. Aside from my transgression, we had no contact with one another for the duration of our break, until she reached out to me saying she had made her decision and asking if we could meet later that day, at our place, technically just mine at that point, but you get it. Once she got there, she talked me through what she'd been doing during our time apart. She explained that at first she needed some time adjusting to life without me, not just in the sense of missing me as a person but also of not having a partner for the first time in a decade. Our experiences in that regard were rather similar. I guess we'd both grown to be somewhat codependent. Once she was past that, she started exploring her feelings on parenthood. One thing she did was talk about it with friends and relatives, both with parents, future parents as well as child-free couples, talking about their experience, about how they came to end up where they did. She also made a point to spend time with children, babysitting for friends semi-regularly and stuff like that. There was also a lot of pure introspection, thinking about her feelings as well as our relationship. She told me that while she does love being around children, she can confidently say that she doesn't need children of her own, and that she would rather be with the right person. Lucky for me, she still thinks I'm that person. While we both had to shed a bit of our codependency, the yearning and love for one another didn't go away or dim for either of us. Back to her thoughts on children and not having them. She said that she'd still have children in her life. Her brother and his wife are planning to start a family soon. My own sister, who is on good terms with my partner, already has one, and that would be enough to fulfill that part of her. She said she was sure and asked if I was going to be able to accept her decision. I said yes and thanked her for respecting my own decision not to have children and still wanting to be with me. We also talked about how worthwhile each of us felt this time apart had been. She said that while it ultimately didn't change her mind, it reinforced it, and she said that she could understand why I needed that added certainty. She did add that she wished I'd been more open to her about this whole thing before I'd essentially convinced myself to end things with her, that she felt communication had before been a strong point of our relationship and that it did hurt to be blindsided. I committed to doing better in the future should any such circumstances arise. And that's kind of it. We've fallen back into our relationship dynamic pretty seamlessly. She's back living with me in our apartment. We've been making up for lost time, catching up on what the other had been up to, and made a point to have what I'd call an above average amount of romantic evenings and such since we got back together. Really though, the romance is nice, but just being with her again has been bliss. Her 30th birthday is coming up over the summer and we've made plans for a 2-week getaway somewhere sunny to celebrate, just the two of us. We will also have a thing with friends and family once we're back, but we'll be away for the day proper. Not our first time vacationing together of course, but kinda pulling out all the stops on this one. I'm also considering maybe popping the question then, but I first want to sound out that it is still what she wants. Hopefully I don't completely ruin the surprise trying to figure that out. I'd like to thank those who left comments or reached out in DMs, whether they were messages of support, advice or criticism. I was not in the ideal mindset to accept feedback after my initial submission, but I did find worth in a lot of what I dismissed at the time, rereading those threads during the past months. This will hopefully be the last update.
I rolled my eyes at my boyfriend's proposal because it took 25 years of me begging. He only proposed after he lost his big executive job, and now he's claiming I'm just a gold digger. Yesterday after dinner my 52 female, boyfriend of 30 years, 53 male, proposed to me. He just walked towards me holding a box and said to open it. It was a ring and I had pictured this moment a million different times but never thought I'd be so apathetic. My boyfriend then said that he was retired now and wants to kick back and enjoy life with me, and would love to do it all with me as his wife. A nice speech and all, but from the 5-year mark of our relationship onwards, I had been making clear my deep desire to marry, and was consistently dismissed, given empty promises, gaslit. We had been through the gamut with therapy, and one counselor implied that me telling him we needed to go to therapy and getting his butt on the couch still means nothing if his mind has been made up. I was in denial about the fact he was just giving me the false illusion of progress to stall. My boyfriend and I have 4 kids. The oldest 3 are adults, while the youngest is 15. She was sleeping over elsewhere when this all went down. All of our kids went to a private school filled with typical Southern soccer parents. I had to endure PTA moms' jabs about me not sharing a last name with my kids. Preteen years were hell because the other kids would taunt my kids by saying, "Your dad would rather sin and go to hell than marry your mom." My boyfriend's mom would tell him marriage would be selfish on my part, it is just a piece of paper. My boyfriend ended up rising up the ranks until he became an executive. I was a stay-at-home mom, so I felt like there was always a power imbalance, exasperated by the fact I could be tossed any time. I partly did stay because I wanted my kids to have the best life and because I felt lucky and proud to be partnered with such an intelligent, successful man, but also because I loved him. These past few years my boyfriend's career has taken a downturn. He will never be poor, but the company he was part of took a nosedive during 2020 and he had made enemies out of associates and board members. He decided to step back from his role and take the generous severance agreed upon. Now he is living off his investments and wants to relax. I did not like how his career ended and how he treated people, and I had been deciding whether I wanted to leave and find somebody else after our youngest turns 18. So the proposal was a shock because I should hope that he noticed I have avoided conversations about the future as of late. He rattles on about downsizing our house so we can travel and also cutting back on our other expenses, but we're not married so it's all his money and house anyway. He did notice my eye roll and was offended. He asked what's wrong and I said that suddenly now that he's downsizing I'm good enough to marry. He got mad and said that now that he's downsizing and no longer an executive, I suddenly think our relationship is disrespectful. And started implying I was a gold digger. I was so angry I walked out and said I might just go out looking for a respectful relationship because I don't know what respect is anymore. Was I wrong for doing that? Update 1 day later, at the time of my original post, my boyfriend and I had not spoken since the engagement fight. I've been with him long enough to know that when he goes and closes the bedroom door before I get in, that's a signal that I should sleep in one of the guest rooms, so I did that. However, this morning I broke the ice. I told him about how dismissed I felt over the years. I also said that we are both in our 50s and these last few years have taught us that people at work who kiss the ground you walk on one day can easily turn on you the next. And true partners in life are valuable and hard to find, so I wished he'd treat me like I'm valued. Instead he treats me like he thinks prettier, better, and just as loving is always around the corner. I apologized for the eye roll but told him that if he wants marriage, I want a quick committed timeline and genuine happiness from him to be marrying me. I don't need a big party. He listened to me and finally asked if this was about the money and security. He told me that being an executive's girlfriend required things of me, but if I wanted to work I could have. He said he doesn't think I'm grateful enough for the position in society I was in due to his career. But that he's not mad about the eye roll. He said he didn't succeed by being that sensitive. He went on to say I was not his prisoner so I can leave at any time. But to remember he won't tolerate being made my prisoner either via manipulation. He said that for what it's worth, the engagement ring is mine and I could do whatever I wanted with it. He will also not be accused of not providing for his daughter, so be assured he won't shirk child support. But that he felt what I said before was emotional blackmail. So he no longer wants to go forward with marrying but says if I'd like to travel with him that's fine. Him traveling is non-negotiable and so if I wanted to get a job it would have to be a remote job. It was a sad conversation and I spent a few hours alone after that. I felt I had nothing to lose so I just asked him if he would support me getting an associate's, but that most associates for technical careers were in person. He then dropped the bombshell that if I wasn't traveling with him he wasn't going to go those periods without lovemaking. I was astounded by his callousness because he's back to take it or leave it. We fought again with me saying we're all feeling the effects of age. I've supported him through health issues, and if he thinks he can just find somebody who has that loyalty I've shown him, he's wrong. At this point I'm looking for ways out. I can't say I haven't been tempted to say I'll travel with him and try to get a remote job, but also realize how resentful I am that he continues to need to have the power in the relationship. I don't think I'll ever know my value truly, but something's telling me there has to be better out there, at least in a partner. Update 2, 1 month later. It's been over a month since I last posted and my life has changed drastically. I really wish this update could have been positive, but I'm not doing well. But what remains is hope. Hope in the kindness of others, my grown kids, employers, courts, even my kid's dad. Hope in the value of love that I've given so freely to my kid's dad. Because I was raised to believe even those who don't appreciate the love I've given them will eventually self-actualize and pay it back. Here's what has happened since. Since my kid's dad accused me of trying to keep him an emotional prisoner, I tried to show him I valued his freedom. I gave him his space and showed that I could live life without trapping him. I started doing that right after our discussion. His reaction was anger. After our talk he started glaring and picking fights over everything. The speed at which I did housework, my spending, within his allowance, and cut it to nearly zero. And he asked for the ring back during an argument. I took the comments to my post to heart. In particular, advice telling me that if badgered I should refuse to leave the house. Just a few days after our conversation about the engagement he picked a fight and accused me of ignoring him. He said he wanted me out. I said no, I deserve to be here. He responded by having a lawyer send me a notice telling me to vacate that day. I happened so quickly I was too shocked to react. My kids were torn between, dad's bluffing and try to leave. But now he's filed to evict. It's up to the courts now. I tried looking for legal aid, but the person I talked to was cold and implied that my status as a mom and partner won't protect me from eviction. I've tried sending out applications for office jobs. but was told by friends to be kind to myself because if one rejection comes, something better will come along. My adult kids suggested I apply for SNAP, food stamps, and I haven't out of shame. They said if I do and Dad and I no longer live together, the government will help me collect child support. My grown kids said they can't risk upsetting Dad. My oldest told me a gas station was hiring night shift, and he'd try to help once he graduated. Just when I decided to just be grateful for the job, they rejected me after an interview where I feel I spoke well. That hurt. But I keep having hope because every day there are new remote and non-remote jobs posted, saying they'll train the right candidate. I am applying to every corporation it seems, with hope that one of them will take a chance on me, and give me an interview that I will ace. See me for somebody pulling herself up. I know my boyfriend wants me to beg, but I don't know if that would make him drop the suit. I just don't know anymore. I am in my corner of the house trying to keep things normal and applying like it's a job. I don't know what else to say, but that ends my update for now. I maintain hope and dignity. New update, 5 weeks later, the unconscionable happened. A judge is letting my ex-boyfriend evict me. A judge who is supposed to uphold the laws of fairness, morality, and for years I assumed kindness found in favor of my ex-boyfriend. My head is spinning. I have not found a job yet. And I did everything right. I applied to hundreds upon hundreds of marketing jobs online. I've gotten 3 responses, but those responses ask me to download communication apps to do the interview, and their instructions are so hard to understand. I don't do well with non-concrete directions, so I got too aggravated to respond. However, at this point, I'm desperate enough to interview even there. I have taken the advice to apply to non-marketing jobs. My older daughter wrote me a resume for an office assistant job for a church that only offered 8 to 10 hours a week at $2 over minimum wage. I got called for an interview. And the pastor of all people seemed disappointed after seeing me, and greeted me with a different tone than he greeted the next applicant who came in, a woman in her mid-20s. Horrible behavior from a mid-30s man. He even called me ma'am in this apprehensive tone. I did not get the job, but I feel bad for whoever does. I only have a few days before a sheriff arrives. I called my kids for help. My legal aid attorney predicted I'd only get visitation until I have a stable place. And child support would likely be enough to only partially pay for motel living, so I needed to quickly get a job. How can the world treat a mom like this? My adult kids arranged to meet me and told me there's a reason even their grandma called my ex an alley cat. They offered to sneak food from dining halls when I visit and lend me clothes for interviews, but said their dad laid down the law with regards to sending money. And that it's not my fault, but at some point the shows of fickle affection they've seen during their childhood, where they faced bullying and watched people like me who are kind be scorned. And in all that instability, accomplishments and money were the only constants, and that has made them emotionally apathetic. But that it's hard to fix because it goes hand in hand with the overactive having sense of self-preservation they've acquired. They blame it on watching how self-preservation got their dad far, and the lack of it crushed others. I was able to sell the few things that my ex did not bother to claw away from me. I have enough to book a room at a motel for about a week, but then I don't know. I asked my newly 16-year-old if she'd want to stay with me when I get a motel room. She started crying and begging her dad to let me stay. I will fight for custody with every ounce of strength I have. But I'm guessing her siblings are telling her to enlist self-preservation and stay with her dad. I understand, I do. But she still needs her mom. I'm in contact with a shelter. Hopefully I can find somebody who will fight for me to get housing. But I don't know what my future holds. That's it for now. Thank you everyone for the support. My ex-boyfriend found out the truth behind my cheating and he's extremely upset now. Okay, when I, 34 female, was 14, I finally got my life back on track after a rough childhood. I lost my dad, was bullied in school and blah blah blah, and simply had some rough years. But I changed of school. I met my group friends and someone who a couple of months later became my first boyfriend, Thomas, 34 male now. I was real happy. I felt like I had found my place finally. I was doing good in school, had a job, and at least 2 weekends a month, my group of friends, I would leave the town to go to a city in the coast or the capital city, just 2 or 3 hours away in car. I'm from Argentina, and we would go to see our favorite national rock bands. We loved it, we were big fans. It was the coolest thing to do back then in my country. Doing pogo, pushing people to get to the front fence, screaming the lyrics, etc. It doesn't seem important, but it is. Basically, when I was 16, my friend group and I head to the capital to go see one of our favorite bands, Callejeros, at a place called Cromanon. I'm not gonna explain what happened, just gonna say that the biggest tragedy of rock happened that night. Lots of victims and lots of people that ended up hurt. I ended up hurt. I still have a big scar on my thigh. 2 of my closest friends passed away that night. It was a big mess. I can never explain what I felt. I remember I started to go out every weekend. I would get super drunk. I avoided talking about it at all. I would leave the room when someone even spoke about it. I kept pretending that everything was fine. That I was fine. In case you're wondering, getting alcohol in Latino America being a minor is not hard, much less in a small town. Plus, I'm from a town where, for some reason, we also go out on Thursdays, and in Latino America, we usually leave clubs and parties around 6 a.m. On Fridays, I would show up drunk at school. But that was common, so no one realized. Thomas was there, supporting me through everything. Working hard to get a smile out of me every day, trying to get me to open up, but not pushing me too much either, hugging me when I needed to. And well, our relationship grew stronger, despite me going into a darker hole. When we graduated, we moved to the same city to keep studying, and I decided that it was time for me to cut the bull crap. I got a part-time job and worked hard to get the best grades, got new friends, stopped partying so much. I thought I was fine, or at least I wanted to convince myself that I was, but with time, I realized that I wasn't. We were like 20, and I remember I started to drink again. I hated myself, I felt miserable, I had nightmares of that night, and I felt even worse because I thought I was being like ungrateful. I survived at least, in my mind, feeling like this was pathetic. Mental health, well, we didn't speak much about it then. It was a taboo to go to therapy. During this time, I started to treat Thomas bad. I was mistreating him. No, I never hit him or anything like that, but I would often yell at him or call him names when he was just trying to help. I kept pushing him away. I realized he deserved better than me. Thomas was always an angel, of course he did. It did not make sense to me why he was still supporting me. When he found me passed out after so much drinking on the floor, he would take me to the bathroom, bathe me, dress me and put me on the bed, cook for me, clean my apartment. It only made me feel worse. I had a great man, and I was treating him like crap. He simply deserved better than me. I tried to tell him that we needed to break up, but he refused. Thomas refused and told me he would stick next to me no matter what. But I only got worse, and I felt like I was going to drag him with me, and I couldn't stand the idea of seeing him with me. So after thinking, I made a choice. I did the only thing I knew he wouldn't forgive. Well, I told him I did it. I told him I cheated on him with a guy from my work, a friend he was jealous of. He was upset, confused, angry, sad and felt betrayed, of course. It was heartbreaking to see him like that, but I knew it was necessary. He was much better without me, I was just a dead weight back then. Anyway, he left. I simply did not see him again afterwards. I didn't call him either, didn't search for him even though I wanted to. After I graduated, I got a full-time job, and I got tired of feeling miserable. My mom got me in contact with survivors. I'm going to clarify, many survivors had unalived themselves or tried to. Most of us ended up with serious mental health issues as you can see, and they ended up convincing me to start therapy. I stopped drinking for good, and well, it was all really hard. Finally stop avoiding reality and facing my problems, accepting that I needed help. All the process of opening up was hard, but worth it. There were countless nights where I just stared at the phone, wondering if I should call Thomas or not. I wanted to call him, tell him I had lied, apologize for everything and thank him for everything he did for me. I have to say, Thomas did call to check up a few times, but I always decided not to pick up. I heard a lot of voicemails from him while he was drunk, asking how I could do that to him, but he would still say that he loved me and he asked me how I was. I forced myself to never answer. With time, his calls stopped, I got better and started to go back to my old self slowly. I started dating again, started to have more fun and eventually got married and had a daughter. Life did get better for me, but all that goes up, goes down, and my husband ended up cheating on me. Karma's a beach, I know. I divorced him, and I was able to buy my own house and got primary custody of our daughter. My daughter has been the light of my eyes and, even with everything that happened lately, for her, I would never let myself fall into that depression again. I was and still am happier than ever. Anyway, I got in contact again with Thomas like 5 months ago. He found me on Instagram and just sent me a direct message, and we started to chat, to catch up about life. He also had a kid, a 5-year-old son, but he's not with his mother. It was a product of a one-night thing, and they have a good co-parenting relationship. He has him 2 weeks a month. The thing is, we started to meet up again. Just as friends at first, but then we started to hook up. We would go on dates, but we never talked about the cheating. But finally, I confessed that my feelings for him were back. Thomas told me he was feeling the same, but he wasn't sure about starting anything again with someone who had cheated. That's when I chose to finally open up about what happened in the past, about how I was feeling and how I didn't want to drag him with me, so that's why I chose to lie about cheating on him. Thomas was shocked. He got upset and I remember how he left. He called me later and told me I shouldn't have lied to him about something like cheating, that I should have just tell him that I didn't want to be with him anymore. I explained again my side, and told him I'd rather him to think real bad of me, to be real sad for a while but eventually move on, than to drag him with me, to my dark hole. He just told me that he was an adult that could make his own choices, and that he just wanted to be there for me. I told him I didn't regret what I did, but I apologized for hurting him and hung up, and we haven't talked ever since. He called me yesterday, but I didn't pick up. I wasn't ready to talk with him yet. I have been processing all this information. Despite not being the best way, all these years I believed I was doing him a favor. That even though it hurt him, it was the best for him. Also, I was not even close to be good enough to be in a relationship. I honestly don't know. I do know it wasn't the best way, but I had no strength to reject him. I knew he would have been able to convince me that he wanted to stay with me despite everything. Update: I'm going to start by clarifying that everything I wrote about Cromanon tragedy, I only wrote it for context. It was over 19 years ago. I only wrote it to explain the place where I was, how my mind worked, and how I was feeling. I would never ever come to ask advice about something like that on Reddit. Come on. Be serious, for the love of God. I'm saying this for all the people that acted like psychiatrists and psychologists and even tried to make a diagnosis out of a Reddit post. Seriously, even if it was with good intentions, it's dangerous and really irresponsible to do so. I don't have PTSD. I searched for professional help after graduating university. I graduated 13 years ago. I saw psychiatrists and psychologists, and I never got diagnosed with PTSD. I had depression and anxiety. I could never explain the amount of pain I felt after the tragedy, and how it only got worse because I didn't search for help right away. It took a lot of work, but years of therapy and support from friends and family finally made me get back to my old self. Not fully like I wanted to, but on a point, I didn't even recognize myself. I'm saying that for the ones who told me I was toxic, and I guess I was on a point. But the others were never the problem. I was so self-destructive back then that I thought the best would be to push everyone away again. But like I said, that was so long ago. And I'm not even close to be like that. I repeat, I wouldn't be so irresponsible to get into another relationship, get married and have a child. When Thomas and I first started to date again, it was like the first years of our relationship. Healthy, fun and full of love. Not like the last year of our relationship. That was definitely the worst year of my life. I've talked about it on therapy for years and years, and I put it behind years ago. Now it's just something that marked me, but that is my past. It left me lots and lots of problems, but well, it is what it is. I survived and should be thankful for it. Now to the point, Thomas and I met up on Saturday, and things went well. We had a long talk. We talked for hours about everything. He opened up about how hurt he felt, how awful the months after our breakup was, and how he felt like I was making the choice for him. I told him that I was not only doing it for him, but also for me. I couldn't be in a relationship back then. How could I? Traumatized for whatever reason I was, back then I was so self-destructive and not nice to be around. I also told him how he might have wanted to stay, but I didn't want him to. I reminded him that I tried to break up with him many times, and he simply wouldn't listen to my reasons and apologized for it, but he also explained how he loved me more than anything and couldn't leave in that situation. And how even after he thought I had cheated, he was scared about me trying to unalive myself. Every time there was a news about one of the survivors of Cromanon that had unalived themselves, he would freak out thinking it was me. I told him I loved him so much back then and now, but at least for me, it was not healthy to maintain a relationship, it was toxic and it wouldn't have helped any of us at all. We apologized to each other, and I clarified that I want to leave all of this behind and to just be us, to finally put this in the past. He agreed. We cried, but it was tears of happiness. I hadn't been so happy in a while. I guess deep down it was what I always wanted, ever since we broke up. To be okay again and to be like we used to. I guess that I never stopped loving him, and he never stopped loving me. I always wonder where he was or if he was okay, wonder what would have happened if things had been different. But now I don't have to wonder anymore, because we're together now and that's all that matters. But, one step at a time. My sister secretly tested me to see if I'd make a move on her husband. Then, my mom tricked me into reconciling with my sister. This is actually crazy and there's going to be lots of details, so please bear with me. My sister recently got married. It's been about 3 to 4 months. I didn't really see much of them after the wedding, honeymoon and then back to work. But once a month our family all gets together and my parents host a huge feast. Since this took place a week ago, it was for the month of August. During this dinner, my brother-in-law was being extremely weird towards me. He was complimenting my body, ignoring my sister, and just straight up acting so strange. It was completely unexpected for several reasons, one being his wife was sitting right next to me. 2, he has only been married a few months. Also, he's just never spoken to or about me like that before. I felt really uncomfortable and I'm sure it transpired to the rest of the room because what the heck. Except it was weird because nobody was pointing anything out. I was extremely confused and just wanted to leave. I left early, but when I got home I just felt so icky. I don't even know how to describe it. I decided to message my sister and let her know his behavior made me uncomfortable. I told her that it was also concerning he felt comfortable enough to say these things in front of my parents and brother. I explained that if she didn't feel comfortable being in the middle I wouldn't mind explaining this to him myself. His behavior was so unnerving that I FaceTimed my boyfriend who was away for work in the United States. I told him it was weird and how suddenly my brother-in-law's behavior towards me went from that of siblings to this horribly uncomfortable situation. He was pissed, rightfully so. My sister didn't respond to my texts until the next day. She asked to meet up, so I did. I was expecting her to be upset and to have him apologize for what he said. Instead, she admits it was all a test and I passed. I was confused to say the least. What did she mean by a test? Passed? Like what's going on? Turns out, she had her husband do those things on purpose because she wanted to see how I would react if he had said those things to me and meant them. My reaction and choice to message her afterwards told her I could be trusted around him. I was offended to say the least. Why would she think I couldn't be trusted? Well, let me tell you in my opinion, not very valid reason for this lack of trust. My sister has been married before. She was 27 and the divorce was about 10 months into marriage. Her ex was a psycho to say the least. He had known me longer than he did my sister, I was the one who had introduced them. They got along well and eventually started dating. It looked like the healthiest and most romantic relationship to grace planet Earth. Except when they got married. During their marriage, I was staying with them because it was a closer commute to work. They had extra bedrooms and I would pay rent and cook and clean for myself. My underwear, bras and bottoms, would often go missing. It started off small. I just assumed it got mixed up in my sister's laundry and would turn up eventually. But it was happening more frequently to the point where I was buying underwear almost weekly. I kept pressuring my sister to admit she was stealing my underwear and she was adamant it wasn't her. I decided to just ignore it and go about my day. Something I hadn't even considered an option was the real reason. My former brother-in-law was stealing my underwear. I don't know, nor did I want to know what he was doing with it when I found out. But I was so disgusted and confused. Someone I thought was my friend was actually just a perv. He admitted he had never really loved my sister and was just using her to get to me. I was just so creeped out and I pressed charges against him for his sickening behavior. I was able to get a restraining order and my sister divorced him almost instantly after finding out. She used something traumatic that happened to me and flipped it to make it seem like I'm the one who was untrustworthy. She claimed I must have strung him along for him to think like that, and this test was just to prove I wasn't doing it again. Safe to say I was extremely hurt and angry by her response, so I told her to never speak or contact me again if that's what she really thought of me. My family found out and for the most part agree her behavior is crazy. But my mother stood by her actions and said my sister was just trying to protect herself from being hurt again. I told her if she had just been honest with me from the start, I wouldn't have been as bothered. There's a right way to approach things and a wrong way. This isn't just wrong, it's also crazy. Why is she so adamant it's my life goal to hurt her? I didn't know that her ex was going to turn out like that, so why am I being punished? She claimed I should have had some indication he liked me, but he really made it seem like he was head over heels for my sister. How am I supposed to know what's going on in someone else's mind? Anyway, the family dinner was earlier for this month as it was the most compatible date for everyone's schedules, yesterday. I told my parents to expect me not to show up if my sister and brother-in-law were going. It wasn't even because I refused to ever speak to her again. I had just said that because the situation was so fresh. I told my mother I would apologize when I had cooled down a little. It was just difficult to face them when they made me feel like a horrible person for a situation that was out of my control. My mother assured me my sister wouldn't attend, so I agreed to come. When I arrived, they were both there. It felt like an ambush, and it sort of was. My sister demanded I apologize for my reaction because it was my own fault it happened in the first place. I can't lie, I snapped. I told her she should remove my number and the title of being my sister if she really felt that way. I just need advice because therapy isn't scheduled for another 2 weeks and I feel like I just dreamt a soap opera storyline. I feel kind of bad because I do understand my sister had her trust broken completely by her ex, but I feel like that distrust shouldn't be aimed at me, but the person who actually caused it. And I was the one who introduced her to the jerk in the first place, so I feel guilty for that already. But I'm failing to see how her schemes to manipulate me into thinking she's being wronged by a husband once again is just far too extreme. 1. I want to apologize to her for one reason, ever introducing that man to her. 2. I really need her to see that I wasn't trying anything when her ex was stealing my underwear. I was just as in the dark as her. How do I go about doing the above because I want to put this behind me and move on? I was just about healing from her former marriage, and now this one is also putting me in a very uncomfortable position. With my sister, my brother-in-law and my own mother. Any advice on how to tackle apologizing, getting my sister's trust back and showing her I truly just want the best for her? Update posted 3 days later. A lot has happened the last couple of days. I lost a sister and a mother in 2 days. It's heartbreaking more than anything. I had a meet up with everyone. My boyfriend came with me, so I had support during the conversation. Honestly, it was hard to look at any of them for the way they treated me. I'm so thankful to everyone opening my eyes to the crazy behavior exhibited in the first part of this story. In front of everyone, my mother admitted to knowing about the plans from the start. Sister confided in her and she agreed it was a good idea. She supported her son-in-law openly harassing her daughter. I'm in complete shock, and it just hurt so much knowing she would condone this considering she knew how much I was affected by the first husband. She knew I was having a difficult time in therapy. It took me a long time to trust people again after that. And I feel like once again, my trust has been broken. I don't know how I'm ever going to trust anyone again. I'm really thankful my boyfriend was there to comfort me because it was so hard keeping my composure around them. My sister was not budging at all. She kept maintaining she was in the right. She said the only reason I wouldn't apologize is because deep down I knew what her ex was like. She said I just liked getting attention from him knowing he was married to my sister. She also claimed I overreacted, and if it's acting then it's not harassment. I told her she shouldn't expect any calls or texts or just not to be contacted by me until I received the apology I deserve from both her and my brother-in-law. Speaking of, he was pretty silent throughout the whole thing. Probably because my father threatened his life if he spoke bad about me. He did say that the only reason he did it was to placate my sister because she kept accusing him of ogling me. But still no apology from him. My mother, this one broke my heart the most. She told me I was over-exaggerating and that I should be happy to have passed my sister's test. She actually said the words, "We can all move on now." I was in complete awe, to be honest. How could she think that things would just go back to normal after this? I asked why she was supporting such delusional behavior. She said it was because she loved my sister and wanted her to be happy. I asked her if she loved me as much as my sister. She said yes. It seemed hesitant, but I don't want to read too much into that. I told her I wanted an apology for her schemes. She refused, so I gave her the same conditions I gave my sister and brother-in-law. Until I get an apology, I simply am not speaking to all three of them. As a result, I also probably have to go low contact with my brother and dad because they both live with my mother. I mean, I'll hang out with them outside and without the presence of my mother. But if she'll let them is the question. I know some of you have suggested spending time with my boyfriend's family on holidays and occasions. I haven't met my boyfriend's family before because they live in the US, but after this situation I've taken 2 weeks paid holiday for the end of this month and he's taking me to meet them for the first time. I hope it goes well because they might be the only family I have now. My therapy session has been moved to tomorrow because I requested an emergency appointment. Wish me luck. Anyway, my biggest thanks goes to all you Redditors for helping me see the situation for what it was. For your advice and compassion, I'm really grateful. I don't think I would have been able to get through this on my own. It's likely I would have caved and apologized just for the pattern to repeat itself. Truly, thank you so much. Wishing you all the best, and I hope you know that your advice might have just saved me from my need to always please others. I'll look back on this moment anytime I feel like putting someone else's feelings above my own comfort. Hope your hearts are filled with love and happiness, Layla. I'm suspicious of my friend's clumsy boyfriend, as it always results in her getting hurt. I can't help but feel it's on purpose. Trigger warning, DV. I'm a 26-year-old woman, and my friend Kay, who is also 26, has been in a relationship with Andrew, a 25-year-old guy, for nearly a year. Up until recently, I thought they were great together, and Andrew has fit in with our group of friends very nicely. He's been easy to talk to and is someone who I thought could be the perfect match for Kay. In the beginning, Andrew has always been known for being clumsy, occasionally spilling on himself, tripping, and sometimes just being an overall goof. We joked he was the poster child of a himbo. It started with a simple mistake, Andrew spilling wine on Kay's outfit. He seemed so apologetic and genuinely sorry. Then a couple days later at a potluck, Andrew bumps into Kay while she was bringing out a salad bowl, causing it to fall on her foot and giving her a pretty nasty bruise. Again he was apologetic, but this time just rubbed me the wrong way. It seemed awkward the way he had bumped into her. Then there were just more of these accidents, like ripping a dress when he was falling trying to catch his balance, dropping a bowl of chocolate ice cream on her shoes, and spilling an ashtray that landed all over her hair. All of this is just giving me a weird feeling, like why does it feel like his clumsiness is getting worse? Recently we were having a movie night, Kay was sitting on the floor and I had gotten up from the couch to get some more popcorn. When I see Andrew walking over with hot tea, I'm thinking no way I'm going to have her get piping hot tea spilled on her by accident. So I get up and say, "Oh, thanks for grabbing this, do you mind grabbing me popcorn since you're closest?" He kind of gets a defensive tone with me saying, "Yeah, but let me give this to Kay first." I said no, it's not a problem, I'll give it to her. As sweet as possible, and took the mug out of his hands and gave it to Kay. He seemed kind of distant the whole rest of the evening. I talked with one of my friends in our group just about the tea drama and she said that Andrew might have been pissed off feeling like I was babying him. I think that if he's been prone to hurting his girlfriend, wouldn't he want to avoid situations that could get her seriously hurt? Wouldn't you want a friend to help you? Am I just overthinking this? I want to talk to Kay about my concerns soon because I'm really scared for her. I just want to be wise in how I speak to her because I don't want her to take anything I say the wrong way. Any advice would be so helpful. Edit to add. Okay, after a lot of comments I reached out to Kay. We're meeting up one-on-one and I'll talk with her then. I'm still figuring out exactly what I want to say, but you have all been so helpful and I will keep you posted on how everything goes. Update the next day. Hi all, this evening I got a text from Andrew. It seems my friend, who I'll be referring to as Sarah, had told him about the tea situation. He texted, "Hey, just wanted to reach out and let you know that I wasn't pissed with you." I played it cool and just replied, "Hey, no problem man, just wanted to make sure all was good with you." He messaged me back and said, "Lol, yeah, why wouldn't I be?" I left it alone after that. I reached out to Sarah and asked how the story was relayed to him and she explained that it sort of came up in conversation. She had told him that I hadn't meant to baby him and hoped I didn't make him pissed by taking away the teacup. Sarah is a fixer and I think she just wanted any conflict between us to be resolved. While I know she was coming from a good place, I am a bit frustrated to have my words twisted into what she believes happened. I messaged Kay and we are still hanging out either early Monday or Tuesday. She seems to be fine with me. We had a quick call but she seemed less talkative, which has me nervous. I really hope I didn't screw everything up. After a lot of comments I've decided I'm going to be careful with my wording. A lot of you have pointed out Andrew could have a medical condition. While I'm a bit skeptical, I will keep this in mind. Hopefully my concerns can be addressed in a way that flows with our conversation. Update 3 days after the original post, a lot has gone on. So I talked to Kay this morning. I started off the conversation normal, when Kay says, "Hey, why were you concerned about Andrew bringing me tea?" I just say I had noticed he'd been more clumsy lately and I wanted to avoid either of you of getting hurt. She was quiet for a bit then asks me, "Do you think it's odd how he's been acting?" Considering all your advice, I respond with I care about you and want you to be safe. I don't want to hurt you or Andrew, but I feel like most of the accidents have come at your expense. I don't want it to get to a point where you have a worse injury. This is when Kay burst out crying like I have never seen. After composing herself enough to talk, she says she's been so suspicious of how these accidents have been centered around her and how validating it was to have someone feel the same way. It's been causing her a lot of anxiety and she felt so relieved when I took the teacup away from him. She has tried to suggest to Andrew that he should go to a doctor, but he just says he's perfectly fine. Kay is not confrontational, so she just drops it. She said how recently Sarah, Andrew and her were all hanging out together. Sarah told Andrew I was so upset about how he was hesitant to hand me the teacup, a completely different story from what Sarah told me. I have been more open with my emotions in my post due to my anonymity, but in person I was very casual about the situation. I said something along the lines of, "Hey, did you think I upset Andrew by taking the tea when I asked him to get me popcorn? I hope I didn't come off rude." Then Kay told me something really disturbing, how during this conversation Andrew and Sarah started joking about Kay being a battered wife. How ridiculous the idea would be if Andrew was really abusing her, and some really dark jokes. This had Kay feeling like she was crazy to think that these accidents might be on purpose. Also, they had said some things about me that made her so upset she couldn't even tell me. Kay said she's felt trapped, living with him and how he's intertwined in our group. She felt like she needed to wait to have proof he was faking it to make it worth a bunch of drama. I feel horrible that she's felt so alone in this. I was pretty blunt and just asked, "Do you still love him?" She responded, "I don't. I think I don't even like him anymore." So we talked about the best way for Kay to leave Andrew, being as safe as possible. Kay called in sick to work and we went over to her house and talked with our friend Leah, her roommate. Andrew was out at work, so we quickly moved all their things into Leah's room. She has a key to her door. Anything that was super sentimental to either of them we packed in my car. Kay is going to stay at my house and Leah wanted to stay with a family member who lives not too far away. Kay has written a letter to Andrew ending things. She is going full no contact. She set a date that she expects him to leave. He moved in with them so he doesn't have his name on the lease. Our friends Mike and Corey will be staying at the house. This is to ensure nothing will be damaged due to an accident, also to let Kay and Leah know when it's safe to come back. Thank you all so much for your advice. Tomorrow I plan to go on a little shopping spree with Kay. Doing everything I can to alleviate her anxiety. So far we know Andrew has seen the note and is packing to leave. So far so good. If anything happens I'll be sure to update you all. Final update. First off, Kay is safe. I want to thank everyone for their advice, it has been a huge help. Per someone's comment, we got that detector that finds hidden cameras. Mike and Corey searched everywhere and found nothing. They also have searched for spyware on Kay's phone and laptop, also looked for tracking devices and nothing was found. Locks have since been changed and after a lot of consideration, Kay and Leah have decided to not move due to financial reasons. But for their safety they've decided to have Mike live with them. He works remote so he doesn't have to leave for work and will be at the house most of the time, so Kay or Leah wouldn't be home alone. Corey got a Ring camera for Kay. Also our friend group have code words and safety questions with Kay, which I really recommend anyone leaving a DV situation to do. So last week Sarah had dropped by one of our friends' house to leave a letter for Kay in her mailbox. It was very odd. It was written from both Sarah and Andrew's perspectives, saying how hurt they were, that the way they have been treated was so unfair, that it isn't healthy to go from being someone's everything to just shutting them out entirely. They said how they were happier without outside influences and hoped Kay could find the freedom they had found together. They stated a lot of gross comments about personal struggles of myself and others in the friend group to paint us as crazy people. They ended it with how they just wanted to move on, that this was their goodbye and that they would welcome her back if she ever wanted to reach out to them, but would respect her wishes to go no contact. We all don't know if this is their way of saying they're together or what. It's incredibly odd. Some of our friends think it's an invitation to an open relationship. Either way, we haven't heard from them since. Kay has opened up with her counselor and us about her stories with Andrew. She has come to believe his accidents were a tactic to control her appearance. Apparently he had a thing for a certain aesthetic and would want her to dress in that way. Behind the scenes he would remark how her looks wouldn't show off her figure and how it would be more flattering for her to wear certain aesthetic, because it would just look better. He would even make jokes about her outfits and overall style. When she would tell him to stop he would get apologetic and say he was just trying to be funny. There are other factors as well, but those risked Kay's anonymity, but all revolved around her appearance. Kay is amazing. She has been so strong throughout this process. She said it feels like a heavy burden has been lifted. She is truly special and she deserves true peace and happiness. Our friend group has really gone above and beyond to support Kay, which is the least we can do. Thank you all for pushing me to say something. It validated what Kay and a lot of our friends were feeling. Final updates. My husband has been secretly posting my body online, and I had to find out from a friend who stumbled upon the videos. This man has destroyed everything I have worked for and has completely destroyed the very little sense of stability and safety I had left. I had to resign from my job. A job that I loved. Jobs don't come easy for me with the way that I look. I can't work there anymore because I am a potential danger to the children and staff. Since perv men have started to harass me at work. I work with vulnerable children and mothers who have heard about me have started to refuse me working with their children. Some don't want me to be involved with their child because their husbands can't stop being weird. Fathers have leered at me or made lewd comments toward me, one of them even offered me money to do you know what with him. Men have catcalled me with greater frequency than ever before. Men stare at me. A man followed me from my dentist office and groped me on the street. Random men call my phone, my family home and office to verbally abuse me because my husband has posted my address, my personal and work email, phone numbers, workplace address and every other bit of information online. It is as if the eyes and judgment of the entire world is on me. Yes, the great majority of people are sympathetic, kind and in support of me. Many people have reached out in support of me, from old classmates to former colleagues, neighbors, members of my religious community, family friends, his family and many more have expressed solidarity and kindness, but the crazies and pervs who believe him and are like him, are bolder, louder and much more noticeable. Then I find out from my lawyers and their investigators that he was giving me substances and SAing me as I slept. I suffer from migraines and insomnia and take medication for it. He saw my medication as an opportunity to make me unconscious with my own prescriptions. He shared, was actually bragging, on a forum where other perverts congregate how he was so clever for drugging me with my own medication and they were encouraging him to do more things to me. Soon-to-be ex-husband has also decided to spread rumors that I was aware of the cameras and pressured him into posting online, and there are people who believe him. He also changed his mind about not pressing charges. I went to court. The judge and prosecutors were sympathetic and dismissed the case. It was a combination of my lawyers explaining the circumstances that led to me slapping him and his subsequent actions, threatening me, attacking me, doxing me and blackmailing me by saying he didn't care about the slap, and that he would drop everything if I forgave him. My lawyers used his own words against him since he wrote it in text, and on a recorded call he admitted to me not having slapped him that hard and that he only pressed charges to cause me harm. But his crimes against me are still being investigated by the prosecutors. New update. I wish I could say I was feeling better or doing better, but I feel awful, and I am still struggling with everything. It is still his life's mission to be as cruel as he can be and to stand in the way of every step I make. He is still refusing to work with my divorce lawyer, he continues to be difficult every step of the way and has run off his own lawyers. He is now in his third lawyer and we are again starting from scratch in the divorce negotiations. He has been granted an extension by the courts due to his last lawyer just dropping him a few days before our hearing. As for posting non-consensual material, a trial date was scheduled and he recently asked for an extension and he'll probably be granted it as his criminal lawyer dropped him too. So in the last month he has been dropped by his divorce lawyer and his criminal lawyer. The man is on a roll. When it rains it sure pours. My father passed a little over a month ago and my mother is now in hospice care as she is soon to go back to God. I'm sad but not shocked about this as I've had a long time to prepare for it. My father had been battling cancer for almost 3 years and so was as prepared as a person can be, and my mother's health had been declining significantly for years due to her dementia. My soon-to-be ex-husband decided it was a great idea to corner me at the venue we held the after-funeral meal at. He decided to wait for me to be alone. He approached me as I was cleaning up the venue. I was on my own and at that time I was kind of exhausted and could not muster up the rage to chase him off as I had done many times before. So I just let him talk. He seemed almost decent as he was giving his million excuses on why things were the way they were. He cried about how awful he feels for hurting me. Then he started telling me about how he always felt I was better than him in everything as I made more money, was better educated, had been better traveled than him, and that he felt jealous of my confidence and how in the beginning these were things that he was most attracted to, but as our relationship and marriage progressed these were the things he started to dislike about me. He also said that he was angry that I refused to consider being a stay-at-home wife and mother even though he knew from the beginning that I wasn't the stay-at-home type. He said that he tried to be a good husband but that my refusal to bend or let him have the last say in things was the catalyst for his anger and need to humiliate me. He talked about how he had always had addiction issues but he thought that if he was married he would be cured of his depression, his adult video and love-making addiction, and he felt like if I ever found out I would have never married him and or would divorce him, and then it angered him and pushed him to want to punish me for thinking I was better than him. He was jealous and angry about so many things. But when I said to him, "So you hurt me because you felt jealous and inadequate in comparison," he lost his mind and started to shout and say that he knew I would react that way. I decided to refrain from commenting further and just let him spill his guts uninterrupted. For 3 hours he made excuse after excuse for why he did what he did. But it all comes down to him feeling inferior to me, him being jealous and angry that I dared have a mind and life of my own. He said right before our wedding he joined a men's group online that were helping him deal with his adult video and love-making addiction, and one tip given was to make your own videos and watch that instead, but he knew I'd never agree to it, so it was my fault he needed to spy on me and that he never intended to share it with others, but one day I had angered him so much and as payback he posted it and he felt good. And so every time I emasculated him by having my own mind or upset him in some way or another he would post more. Eventually, he gained a following and had so many men asking him to post more, he started to like the fact that other men looked up to him for his intimate prowess, and at the same time, his addiction started to come back and he fell back into his habit of picking up women, and when he couldn't get it for free, he'd hire a worker. Then I guess it spiraled out of control for him. The more he spent on his addictions, the more lies he told, the more he felt like a failure for me covering our expenses, the more he resented me, and he got stuck in a cycle of self-destruction, which in turn only fueled his anger with me. He also says he joined a support group for addicts and started going to an addiction rehabilitation clinic as an outpatient to deal with his issues, and that I should give him credit for that. He feels that I should be proud of him for doing that and that I should take him back since he's putting in so much work. He also feels I should appreciate him not stalking me since my dad died, and he is sincere in feelings this way. He genuinely doesn't understand why I'm not seeing how hard he's been trying the past few months. In his deluded mind, he thinks that his honesty in our conversation should count for something and that I am just being a heartless jerk for having been stoic and unmoved by his tears and his show of vulnerability. Even though he gave a great performance of being human during our conversation, I remained unmoved by it because there was nothing to be moved about. I just continued to pack things up from the venue and got in my car and went home. I'm still not working, I still have crazy men calling my phone at all hours of the day, and I still feel humiliated and embarrassed. The only good thing that has happened is that several of the sites have taken down the recordings and banned him from using their platforms. Update: finally I have some good news. So a while back I was granted a restraining and protective order, and my now officially ex-husband did continue to stalk and harass me. After the umpteenth time of calling the police and going to court, he was finally imprisoned, and he has been in prison for a little over a month. I was also granted my divorce. I initially wanted a quick divorce and wanted to just give him everything he asked for, but he kept finding ways to delay or asking for more and more, and I just snapped, so I told my lawyers to do their worst, and they did. My lawyers hated him and I got everything I wanted and way more. Not to gloat, but it was really satisfying seeing him cry. This has been the most peaceful month I've had in a long time. This entire time has been such a trying time, and it has affected my mental and physical health. I've lost 12 kilograms and I've lost a ton of hair due to the stress he was causing me. But I can honestly say that him wailing in court was the chicken soup my soul needed. I've moved from my city and now live on the other side of the country, and I've gotten myself a decent enough job. I am slowly mending my confidence. I am in therapy and I can't say it's working right now, but I know if I stick with it, it will. The non-consensual material he posted has been removed from the more reputable websites he posted on, and my lawyers were able to get me monetarily compensated if these companies didn't want to go to court over it. I mean, money doesn't really change things that much, and I'm still hurt, but it's something. I'm also not so delusional as to think that it isn't still out there in some way or another, and I know there really isn't much I could ever do about that, so I'm just trying to make peace with it. My ex-husband will be serving time in prison for what he did, and my lawyers are working with the courts, and that should be sorted soon enough. I think the reality of the consequences are becoming very clear to him, as I have heard through the grapevine that he attempted to off himself and is now in protective custody until his trial date. He is facing up to 30 years in corporal punishment, and I absolutely look forward to it.